Although the vintage brand of pre-finished flooring was launched in 1997, the actual lineage can be traced back more than 25 years. In 2001, vintage hardwood flooring was acquired by Tembec, one of Canada's largest and most diverse forestry companies. In addition to hardwood flooring, Tembec's manufacturing diversity ranges from pulp and paper, chemicals, OSB, softwood, and hardwood lumber. Tembec's Huntsville sawmill is situated in Ontario's beautiful Muskoka region, also considered to be southwestern Ontario's cottage country. In the late 1960s, the notion of sustainable forest management was introduced in this area and forestry became a secondary industry. Techniques to manage the forest and maintaining a better health and appearance were adopted, even if it required negative economic adjustments to the forest industry. Today, the Huntsville sawmill is one of the few survivors in the region from that transition and is a beneficiary of that early global leadership in sustainable forestry management. A portion of the lumber used in manufacturing vintage hardwood flooring comes from trees that are selectively harvested, carefully leaving juvenile trees and habitat trees intact, while ensuring the lightest imprint on the forest soil. Based on this history of global forest management leadership, Tembec pursued the third-party certification of its supply chain by the environmentally supported FSC. Tembec's Huntsville sawmill produces more hard maple than any other sawmill in the world. Among other things, vintage flooring uses this wood to produce pioneered solid, crafted, engineered, and solid sawn flooring, which is then distributed throughout the world. But how does it all come together? Let's find out. Logs are primarily harvested within a 100-mile radius, but as far away as 500 miles. Logs are stored for up to 4 months in the spring when logging operations are suspended to avoid root and soil damage in the forest. The logs arrive at the Huntsville sawmill and are batched by species. Some of the predominant species sawn in the mill are hard maple, birch, red oak, ash, and cherry. These species are a mirror of the surrounding forests in the Muskoka region. Logs are dumped on an in-feed deck where they are automatically singulated to feed into the debarker. The 30-inch ring debarker has 5 rotating steel fingers that peel the bark from the stem, following the contours of the log, minimizing a damage or loss of the valuable inside fiber. The log then transfers to the head saw deck where it is dimensionally scanned to determine the optimum sawing pattern. As the log moves through the carriage, a computer scans and displays the best solution to maximize volume and value of the log. The role of the operator, also known as the sawyer, is to maneuver the log into the position that will provide the maximum yield as determined by the computer. A 6-foot by 10-inch wide bandsaw rotates at high speed, delivering the thinnest and most accurate possible cut. Although a basic process, all equipment is calibrated to the most exacting tolerances using inline sensors, linear positioners, and computer-recorded performance analysis. The sawyer turns the log, taking 2 cuts on the outside, then flipping to cut the same on the opposing side. These are the clearest and best quality lumber pieces. Although a simple machine, the resaw simply saws in half the slabs generated from the head saw, in effect doubling the output. At this point, the operator directs the resawn boards to a multitude of options, including edger, chipper, or return to be reworked. Boards with the exact thickness are sent to the edger where bark is removed from the sides of the boards. A laser light aligns the edge with the edge sawn to maximize board yield and the quality of the board. The center of the log with the 2 sides removed are called cants. These cants are dropped from the head saw directly to the computer-optimized gang edger. The edger scans the cant and immediately situates the piece to optimize its value. It will calculate the solution to generate the longest and straightest boards from the high-value exterior of the cant. It then automatically feeds the cant into a bank of saws, converting the cant into boards. The boards are then fed through a trimmer saw to square the ends and remove any major defects in the board. Highly trained inspectors grade and tally each piece of wood. For ease of hand movement, accuracy, and continuous automatic data, the inspectors use a voice-recognizing microphone to feed back all the data. The wood is then sorted by length and is ready to be shipped to its final customer. All the scrap wood and board edges fall through chutes in the floor and are conveyed to a 60-inch steel disc with knives known as a chipper. The chips are stored, then trucked to Tembec's own pulp plant and converted into paper products. All sawdust is similarly converted to make energy for the kilns, with excess being sold to make particle board. Currently, 99.7% of the wood that arrives at Tembec's mill site is converted into a usable product or an energy source. In order to maximize the expansion and contraction of solid hardwood flooring, it is extremely important that the wood be dried to 5.5 to 9%. In order to obtain this, the saturated wood is loaded into large kilns ranging in size from 20,000 to 40,000 board feet of lumber. In order to ensure drying accuracy, sensor pins are strategically embedded in the lumber throughout the kiln. The data from these sensors is automatically transmitted to a computer that allows the kiln operator to monitor how the lumber is drying and when it is at its required moisture content. The dried lumber is moved to the flooring plant where it is surfaced through a planer to a thickness of 15/16 of an inch. Surfacing of lumber is important because it allows the lumber to relax and helps prevent twisting and warping. It also allows a grader to inspect the board and make sure that the best face of the wood will be utilized. The density and moisture content of lumber ranges greatly, so the lumber is then passed through an inline moisture meter. This moisture meter ensures that any board that is lower than 5.5% or higher than 9% does not get used. A sensor advises the line operator that the board is not within moisture specification and the board is removed at the outfeed of the line. After the lumber passes the moisture detection, it is then transferred to a ripsaw that optimizes the yield of the lumber. A laser quickly scans the width of the board and advises the line operator of the best possible yield and width to extract from the board. The line operator has the option to accept or override the computer's recommendation in case of any defects that are not picked up by the computer. At the end of the optimized ripsaw, the boards are stacked in piles based on their widths. Vintage manufactures solid hardwood flooring in 2 1/4, 2 3/4, 3-inch, 3 1/4, 4-inch, and 5-inch. The piles are stored in a climate-controlled warehouse where they wait to be milled into flooring. When the production scheduling department advises the mill of the required width and species, the piles of ripped boards are loaded on what is known as a molder hoist to begin the milling process. The boards slowly fall on the milling chain and are inspected for structural defects that will not make the grade. Large open knots and split boards are cut out to ensure safety of equipment and personnel. The boards are then sent through a molder that molds the board to 3/4 of an inch in thickness. The molder also cuts the tongue and groove, the bevel, and the nail relief groove. This whole process happens in one single pass through the molder so as to ensure that Vintage's strict milling tolerances are adhered to. The milled boards are graded again by highly specialized individuals so that they meet one of the 5 grades offered by Vintage. The flooring then moves on to the grading station where trained specialists grade the flooring into one of Vintage's 5 grades. The flooring is then packaged, wrapped, and sent daily to Vintage's pre-finished plant in Toronto. Vintage's Bolton-based crafted engineered plant located in Bolton, Ontario is considered to be a boutique flooring plant specializing in high-quality engineered flooring. A high percentage of the manufacturing process is dedicated to rift and quarter-sawn engineering flooring, and it all starts at the lumber and plywood inspection process. Kiln-dried lumber arrives and is oven-tested to verify moisture content. Only high-grade lumber is used for manufacturing the top layer known as lamella. The plywood is also oven tested at the same time to verify its moisture content. Moisture content of lumber and plywood is crucial in the manufacturing of crafted engineered flooring. If the lumber and plywood are not within a specified range of moisture, the flooring will not perform as required. The high-grade lumber passes through a splitting molder that cuts the exact thickness lamellas required. Vintage only uses sawn lamellas for reasons of quality, appearance, and performance. Sliced or peeled veneers are never used when making crafted engineered flooring. The plywood is sanded to ensure precise core calibration and preparation of the surface of the plywood for gluing. Core calibrating the plywood ensures that the total thickness of the flooring will be exact for the gluing process. The adhesive bond between the top lamella and plywood core is very important to ensure success of Vintage's crafted engineered flooring. Only polyurethane-based adhesives are used to ensure the highest quality bond between plywood and lamella. The adhesive is applied to the plywood in a hot melt form using an extruder. The top lamella is immediately laid on the hot adhesive and pressed. A hydraulic press is used so that the permanent bond is made. The amount of pressure and time are preset so that there is no variance from batch to batch of flooring. The press flooring is now sent through a milling lane. The line consists of underscoring the plywood, final thickness sanding, and milling the side tongue and groove. The milled strips of flooring are then cut to length and final grade is made. The material is then packaged. The material is shipped to Vintage's climate-controlled warehouse and awaits finishing. Vintage's pre-finished plant is located in Toronto, Ontario. In January 2009, Vintage consolidated its two warehouses into a single 140,000 square foot, state-of-the-art pre-finishing plant. Flooring is milled in Canada, Brazil, and Indonesia, and eventually all end up in the Toronto finishing plant, where Vintage pre-finishes approximately 10 million square feet of hardwood flooring annually. The finishing process starts with all the incoming flooring undergoing a rigorous inspection and approval process. Whether it's Vintage's pioneered solid, crafted engineered, structured solid sawn, or Vintage's U-lock flooring, it all must pass this process before it will be pre-finished. The testing protocol that Vintage has in place is second to none in the hardwood flooring industry. All incoming flooring products must pass these tests before they are allowed to be finished. A specified number of boards are removed from every pallet of unfinished flooring, and a 25-point milling tolerance analysis is completed on all of them. All possible milling points of a board are measured and documented and must pass the milling standards that are in place. Standard deviations help determine if a load of flooring is accepted or rejected. It is crucial that wood flooring be dried to a moisture content of 5.5 to 9%. In order to verify the moisture, the boards are cut into small strips and numbered, weighed, and documented. These strips are then placed in an oven and continually dried for approximately 24 hours. This moisture oven test is the only true way to determine what the actual moisture content of the flooring is and how it will perform in the field. The oven is set at 50 degrees and the flooring samples are left to dry over a specified number of hours. This test helps determine how the flooring will perform in dry environments like condos. After unfinished flooring arrives and passes the inspection process, it is stored in Vintage's climate-controlled warehouse. The relative humidity of the warehouse is kept between 45 to 55% year-round. This consistent relative humidity is important when maintaining wood stability. Vintage's finish line is approximately 400 lineal feet long and takes up an area of approximately 25,000 square feet. It takes approximately 4.5 minutes to pre-finish a board from start to finish, and it all starts at the infeed. Based on daily and weekly production scheduling, the desired species, grade, and width of the material is loaded on the pre-finished infeed table. The flooring is interlocked to make panels that range in size from 36 inches to 44 inches wide. The panel then moves down a conveyor system and stops at a mechanical locking station to form one locked panel. This locked panel will run the complete length of the line as a unit so as to ensure consistent sanding, staining, finishing, and boxing. The panelized flooring is sent through a large, state-of-the-art four-head sander. The sandpaper for the machine is approximately 8 feet in diameter. The grit of sandpaper will range from 60 to 180 grit and will depend on the species of wood being finished. Sanding is one of the key components for a perfectly finished pre-finished floor. The precision, tolerance, and quality of a pre-sanded pre-finished floor is impossible to duplicate on an on-site finished flooring. The sanded panel then travels through the stain machine. Vintage uses only water-based stain, which gives the wood floor a better appearance and is also better for the environment. The stain is applied with a sponge roller and passes under a series of brushes to ensure consistent penetration of stain and color on the panel. The newly stained panel then passes through an iridescent heat tunnel that dries the water-based stain panel in approximately 90 seconds. The dried panel exits the heat tunnel fully dried and ready for sealing and finishing. First, it passes through a brush station that removes raised grain fibers or any dried stain particles still on the panel. The panel of wood then travels through a number of filler, sealer, and finish coating stations. In total, Vintage applies anywhere from 2 to 10 coats on all Vintage floors. The number of coats applied depends on many factors. Coating stations use rubber and steel roller coaters to allow for maximum penetration of coating into the wood. Every time a coat is applied to the panel then passes through an independent ultraviolet light box that cross-links the finish and is cured immediately. Vintage offers a 25-year armor coat finish warranty with every product it produces for residential use. Vintage also has a 3-year commercial warranty available by special order. There are approximately 10 standard tests that are part of Vintage's ISO 9001 quality standard, and they are all mandatory. Here is a quick review of 3 of these tests. The first test completed is known as the Tabor Test. A finished piece of flooring is fastened to a small turntable. The turntable rotates while 2 strips of sandpaper are pressing down on the finish. The sandpaper slowly rubs against the finish with every rotation. There is a minimum number of rotations required before the sandpaper breaks the finish. The aluminum oxide coating is what provides the long-term capabilities of the finish and what the Tabor Test is ensuring will support Vintage's 25-year finish warranty. The second test is known as the Crosshatch Adhesion Test. A scoring tool is used to 2 mm wide with evenly spaced squares on the finish of the board. A special tape is then applied and pressed into the wood. The tape is then removed and the wood is inspected for the percentage of finish that comes off the wood. In order to pass this test, the adhesion must be at least 95%. The Belmar scrape test is the third test performed. 8 kilograms of weight is added to a specialty tool that will determine the percentage of cracking on the surface of a board. The board is then slid down a nickel loop pinpoint. The pressure line is evaluated to determine the flexibility and inner coat delamination. Providing the finished flooring passes all the mandatory testing, it then runs down a conveyor belt to where highly trained graders inspect the flooring panel for any defects. The defects range from structural defects to finish marks that come off the pre-finished line. The graded panel is then packaged in the appropriate size box, ranging in size from 14 to 24.5 square feet. After the finished process, the material is shipped to dealers and distributors around the world. Vintage flooring is recognized for having some of the longest average lengths in the industry. Vintage is one of the only pre-finished manufacturers that publishes their average length for all product lines it manufactures. Vintage is also considered to have one of the smallest micro-V in the industry. This small micro-V eliminates unsightly lines in your flooring and helps prevent dirt and dust from building up in the groove. Add to this Vintage's 21 species, 5 grades, hundreds of colors, and a variety of widths ranging from 2 1/4 to 7 inches wide, and you can start to see why Vintage is considered to be one of Canada's premier hardwood flooring lines. The staff of Vintage Hardwood Flooring are proud of the products we make and their ability to stand the test of time. Whether it's your home, your condominium, or your cottage, Vintage has a floor that will meet all your needs.